Hey guys, welcome to my top favorites of 2014. I'm going to split this video up into 3 different parts. I'll explain that in a second. I kind of don't really want to talk way too much about each of the books. I've actually done full reviews for basically every single book I'm going to show you. I've also talked a bit about them all quite a lot, and I'm sure none of it will really come as a surprise to you. I do have 3 different categories that I want to put the books in. I'm going to do my top favorite series, my top favorite standalones, and my top favorite most interesting books that I read. And I did that because there are a lot of books that can't really be compared to one another because they're just kind of trying to do different things. Like I can't really compare a book from a series to a standalone book, so I had to put them all in their separate categories. And another thing I wanted to do was to make sure I didn't choose a book for 2 categories. So if a book is in a category, then it's only in that category and can't be in any other category. Moving on from that, I'm going to start with my 5 favorite series of 2014. It's really difficult to put any of this in a specific order. I actually did try to put them in an order in my mind a few times, and I realized that I just could not do it at all. So all of these are not in any specific order. I'm not really going to show them to you in any specific order. There's one specific series that I can probably put just a tiny bit below the other 4 series and this top 5 favorite series thing, and I'll just show you what that is. Song of Ice and Fire by George R.R. Martin. Really love this series. Obviously, it wouldn't be in this video if I didn't love it, but I could, if I had to, I could put below the other ones. I mean, I still haven't finished it yet. Obviously, there's two more books that are still not out yet, and I still have to read A Dance with Dragons. I was hoping to finish the entire series, like this whole entire box set, before the end of 2014, but I didn't get to do that, unfortunately. I am going to read it very soon though, and of course I'm going to read the other ones when they come out, whenever they come out. And that's another thing kind of keeping me from putting it on the favorites just yet, just because it's kind of up in the air where it's even going. Like, it's really hard to tell where the series is even going, even though I'm already 4 books in. Like, everything's just building up right now, and the 4th book wasn't necessarily my favorite. Like I said, I'm just not really sure where the series is going as a whole. That might be one of the reasons why it is where it is in my head. This is like the only thing in this video also that I have not done a review for, just because I felt like putting up a review for any of these books just kind of be like preaching to the choir, because most people have read this and you either believe the hype or you don't, and the hype is definitely real. It is very good, and I definitely recommend it if you haven't picked up the series yet. Okay, like I said, the next 4 series I just cannot put in any specific order at all, so I'm just going to show them to you the way they're lying on my desk right now. The first one is Gentlemen Bastards by Scott Lynch. I freaking love this series. One of my favorite series I've ever read in my entire life. I can't wait to see where the rest of this goes. There's still 4 more books in this series left, and so far I just love everything about it. I love the characters. Locke and Jean, the 2 main characters of this, are so good. I love reading about them. Both a part of this group called the Gentlemen Bastards. They're thieves, and I love Scott Lynch's writing. His humor is perfect. His dialogue, I love the way he describes things. I love the world this takes place in. It feels very Italian. And each book takes place in a different city, and we just kind of move from city to city within this world, and I just really love everything about it. I did a full review of the first book, Lies of Locke Lamora, and I haven't done reviews for the other 2 because I probably won't do reviews for sequels like that much. But if I had to choose one that was my favorite so far, it would definitely be Red Season of Red Skies, which is the second one. Definitely my favorite of the 3 so far. I literally just read the 3rd one this past month, and I've actually buddy read for all 3 of these books, and the experience of doing that has definitely helped. And I'm going to talk about Republic of Thieves more in my December wrap-up. Just a ton of scheming and thieving and awesome things in this great fantasy world. And the rest of these, just like I said, not even a surprise whatsoever. Bourne series by Brandon Sanderson. This is the first series that I ever read by Brandon Sanderson, and since then I've read I think like 14 things by him this year, and he's easily become one of my new favorite authors of all time. I love how accessible his writing is. I love the worlds he builds. I love his magic systems. I love his characters. I love his dialogue. I love pretty much everything about these, and I love the Cosmere universe in which most of his books take place in, and I love seeing the connections between all of them. And just this series in particular, the characters are perfect. I love everything about the world it takes place on. I've done reviews for every single one of these books that I'm holding right now, all 4 of them, like full reviews for each of them, and I'll link them all below if you want to hear my thoughts on any of them. The series starts out with this character named Kelsier putting together this band of rebels who are basically trying to take over the Lord Ruler, this dark lord who seems to be immortal and is just ruining everything for everybody. There's a lot more to it than that. The series progresses way past that, and I just love everything about it, seriously. If you've been on BookTube for a while and haven't seen this yet, then I'd be shocked. And if you haven't thought about picking it up yet, then I don't know what's wrong with you, because you really, really need to. And the next two are some more lovely Brandon Sanderson. Stormlight Archive, the first two books in the Stormlight Archive, Way of Kings and Words of Radiance. Two of my favorite books of all time, not even just as part of a series, literally just two of my new favorite books of all time. I love the world this takes place on, completely different world than any of the other Brandon Sanderson books. All of his books take place on a different world. This world is called Roshar, and it's just so, it's ridiculous the detail Brandon Sanderson gives you on this world. Magic system and the creatures that live there, the kind of plants that they have there, cultures, the religions, the races, the weather, the nature, the history. Everything about this, everything about the world is put into these, and within all of that there are just these really great characters that we switch perspectives between. Kaladin, Dalinar, Shallan, they're all amazing characters. The first one mainly follows Kaladin, and the second book mainly follows Shallan. Each book is going to focus on one character specifically, although we do get multiple point of views from a ton of different characters throughout all of them. I don't know if I'd necessarily start here with Brandon Sanderson's work. I would suggest starting with the Mistborn series, but you can if you want to. I mean, if you really want to start out with these two gigantic, over 1,000-page books, then be my guest, because they're freaking amazing, and there are 8 more books left, and I'm so in love with this series so far. I did a full review on the first book, The Way of Kings, and I'll link that in the description below so you can see my full thoughts on it, including a summary that I think I did a pretty good job on of giving. I tried to give a summary without spoiling anything. So if you really have no idea what these are about and you're really interested in them, but you're kind of intimidated by the size, go look at that review to see if they sound like something that you might be interested in. And the last series is the Dark Tower series by Stephen King. There are 7 books in the series. I've actually only read the first 5. I'm in the middle of the 6th one right now, and I have to say that I'm freaking loving everything about the way this series is going. I think having read 5 of them now and being halfway through the 6th, I would still say the 4th one is my favorite, but I am still like really, really loving everything about the series right now. I love the way this 5th book went. I love the way the 6th book is going, and I have such high hopes for the 7th book and for the end of the series. I've heard it's an amazing ending. I mean, I've heard from some people that didn't like it, that it wasn't as good, but a lot of people, most people that I've seen read this series think the ending is freaking awesome. I'm going to do a full review of this series as a whole as soon as I'm done with the 7th book. I already know the vast majority of what I want to say for that review, but I want to make sure I've finished the series before I actually go ahead and review the entire thing. But I am going to tell you a bunch of stuff. I'm not going to spoil anything, but definitely look out for that review, because I really want a lot of more people to read the series. I have to warn people, I'm going to warn people in the Dark Tower full series review, that the first book, The Gunslinger, is difficult. It's not a difficult book to read necessarily, but it's very weird. I've read this book like 4 times, and each time, I think every single time, it's gone up like a star in my head on how much I like it. First time might have been like 3 stars, second time might have been like 4, third time might have been like a 5, and now it's one of my favorite books of all time. Like when I started reading this series, trying to read through the entire series, starting a few months ago, I read this and I loved it. I loved everything about it. I really, since I knew what was going on, I knew what was going to happen, I knew the basic plot points that were happening, I fell in love with the writing. I was able to focus on the writing and everything about everything that was going on in it, and I felt just really good about the experience of rereading it again that time. If you feel like you really don't necessarily know what's happening, then I would definitely suggest maybe putting it down, maybe rereading it, or even if you don't reread books, if you don't like rereading books, just move on to the next one, because I promise the next one is better. It really takes a hold of the series and pushes it in the direction that the rest of the series goes in. The second book, Drawing of Three, is way more solidified. It's like standing on solid ground again after reading the first one. And I definitely, if you feel weird about the first book after reading it, read the second book, and I really, really hope that after reading the second book, you'll feel more inclined to read the rest of the series. What I suggest is just focus on what the plot points that happen are, and there aren't that many of them. It's a very short book. Focus on what the plot points are, know what they are, know what the basic idea of what happened in the story is, and it will be easy for you to know that. The writing will kind of feel very fuzzy and dreamlike to you, but the plot points should stand out for what they are, and just take those into consideration when you move on to the rest of the series. Because now that I'm at the 6th book, looking back at this one has become more and more important as the series goes on, and your understanding of this one, I think, will be enhanced greatly as you move through the rest of the series. You'll look back at this one, and I think you'll understand this more than you did before. Anyway, like I said, I'm on the 6th one now, Song of Susanna, and I then am going to read, probably by the end of this month, The Dark Tower, the last book. This book is like 1,000 pages long, so we'll see how long it takes to get through, but I'm really excited to see how this series ends.